India's manufacturing activity grew at the fastest pace in 17 years in August, as per the HSBC India survey. Manufacturing PMI climbing to 59.3 in August as against 59.1 in July. And this improvement has come on the back of growth in new orders and production, which led to more input purchasing and hiring by companies. However, export orders grew at a slower pace despite remaining robust by historical standards. Now on to the August sales data. For the auto sector, strong demand for commercial vehicles and two-wheelers propelling Motown in the last month, but car sales remain in the slow lane as companies cut inventory ahead of the GST decision. Sudarshan Kumar here now to wrap up the month that was for auto. Sud.
So a festive cheer ahead of the festive season, that's what looked like from the auto sales for the month of August, and that helped auto index rise up to 3%, and all the top 5 Nifty gainers were from the auto pack, from Bajaj Auto, Hero Moto, Eicher. All the stocks were up somewhere in the range of 3 to 5%. So we'll start with two-wheeler companies. Bajaj Auto reported sales that were largely in line with estimates. Total sales have come at 4.17 lakh units against our expectation of 4 lakh units, and those sales were up 5% YOY. While domestic sales have slipped, but that also was largely in line, and exports and three-wheeler segment continue to do well. For TVS Motor, except EV, all the segments have seen a double-digit growth, and it was a strong beat against our expectations. So total sales have almost risen 30%, and some of the segments have risen almost up to 47%. For Eicher Motors, company's thesis of growth over margin continues to play out, and that helps company report growth of almost 55%, and total sales have come at 1.14 lakh units. Export contribution, while it's minimal, but again, it continues to see a healthy growth. In the four-wheeler segment, after several months of outperformance this month, M&M Auto segment reports sales that were below estimates. And there is a reason to it. Company is saying that ahead of GST decision, it has decided to decrease the wholesale billing. That impacted the sales of SUV, which has seen a decline YOY. For Maruti, both entry-level segment and SUV sales have seen a decline, and that was the reason even total sales were down almost 1% YOY. But in contrary, after several months of underperformance, Tata Motors sales were higher than estimates, and that was led by commercial vehicle. Both truck and bus segment have reported a healthy growth, and good part was even electric vehicle segment has seen highest monthly sales, and were up 44% YOY. For Ashok Leyland, again, similar to Tata Motors, CV segment has done well, and that has helped company report sales that were better than estimates. Now coming to electric two-wheeler, both Ola Electric and Ather Energy continue to do well. Ola Electric is up almost 50% in last 1 month. It's a similar trend for Ather Energy. And for August month, Ola Electric has reclaimed #2 spot, and month-on-month sales have improved. Similar trend was seen for Ather Energy. For August 2025, company has seen highest ever monthly sales. Now, after strong August month, all the eyes would be on GST Council decision, because we are expecting a GST rate cut for several products.
Yes, that is right. Two-wheelers are likely to see a cut coming in, not for the EV side, because the EVs were already at the slower slab. Sud, many thanks for joining us. But staying with the auto sector, it has called for a uniform GST rate ahead of the GST Council's meeting, which will take place on the 3rd and the 4th. Industry body SIAM urging the government to rationalise rates. Automakers, including Royal Enfield's parent company Eicher Motors, have voiced concerns over a possible different GST rate on premium motorcycles. The centre's proposal includes reducing GST on certain categories of cars, bikes and auto parts to 18% from 28% currently. It's also proposed raising GST on racing cars and motorcycles above 350cc and larger passenger vehicles to keep that at 28%. Meanwhile, the apparel sector is also seeking a single GST rate. Currently, the centre has proposed a 5% GST for ready-made apparel below 2,500 rupees and 18% for those priced above 2,500 rupees. All consumer-facing businesses are hoping for tax cuts to boost sales this festive season.
You look at some auto companies, particularly where the demand is very sensitive to the price cuts, say like motorcycles particularly, say if it comes down from 28 to 18, I mean, you could see massive surge in the demand. My sense is if it is honestly implemented from 28 to 18 for motorcycle companies or entry-level car companies, I think automotive will be one of the segments to watch out for in next 1 year.
But I think there will be an inventory stocking ahead ahead of the festive season when demand should be much more than normal because of the GST rejig. So overall, we believe for the quarter, we should be around 6.5%, if not more. And the deflator will play a bigger role even in the next quarter when WPI is actually running negative right now.
One thing I'm going to look out very closely, is it going to be revenue neutral or not? Because if it's not going to be revenue neutral, it means that rate cuts in some items will be compensated by rate hikes in some other items. And then we have to be very careful, is the net impact going to be positive or not?
Well, that is the big expectation. We will, of course, have to wait to see what is decided by the GST Council. But staying with the GST collections in the month of August stand at 1.86 lakh crore rupees. This is an increase of 6.5% compared to the same month last year. Remember, this is for activities in July and, of course, the GST print coming in on the 1st of September. The Online Gaming Act banning real money games will be notified soon. The Nodal Minister Ashwini Vaishnav met representatives from banks and fintechs today to discuss the rollout. Sources say the government informed companies that legitimate transactions have to be allowed. It also asked them to facilitate refunds of deposits to users. The industry sought clarity on how deposits made with gaming platforms can be returned to players under the banking restrictions. This was something that industry was seeking clarity on. Online gaming app Mobile Premier League will reportedly lay off 60% of its local workforce. As per a Reuters report, MPL will let go of 300 of its 500 India staff in divisions like marketing, finance and operations following the ban on real money games. This was expected. Big relief for the union government. The Supreme Court has dismissed a petition challenging the government's decision to roll out petrol blended with 20% ethanol. Now, the petition had argued that the non-availability of ethanol-free petrol was resulting in mechanical damage and leading to performance issues for vehicles. Defending its stance in the court today, the Attorney General, on behalf of the centre, alleged that there was a huge lobby, quote-unquote, that was opposing the move towards ethanol-blended petrol. The government said it had considered all aspects before taking a decision. That PIL has been dismissed. And before we wrap, Ather Energy has launched its its next generation scooter platform, which will enable the development of multiple scooters while cutting costs and assembly time. Speaking with CNBC TV 18, CEO Ather Mehta said that Ather is on track to achieve 20% in market share.
I don't think the market is for products below a lakh.
Okay.
I've never been a
So at 1 lakh is where you draw the lines.
Yeah, I think today our entry portfolio with software is somewhere around 120 plus. So there is a gap between 120 and 100, and I think there are amazing experiences we can build for our consumers there. But for us, the Lakshman Rekha still is a lakh. Because I think going below that, we are just leaving money on the table, and we're not putting together enough price to build a good experience for the end consumer.
Your stated objective, at least in the near term, is to get to that 20% share. You're still at about 17%.
I think tactically on that, there are very good signs.
Yeah.
Every market that we've gone deep in and that we have focused, for example, South, for example, Gujarat, for example, Northeast, Ather has become number one. And these are three very different markets if you think about it. South India, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, very different from Gujarat, very different from Northeast. In fact, there are towns in even North India. There is Kharagpur, there is, I think, Ludhiana, Amritsar.
So no more South India only brand.
And that's what I'm saying. It is
So Shurista.
And Shurista. So our bet has been that good products can be built in any category. We will build them. We'll build fantastic experiences. Like we've got a great lens even with the year 01 here today to really build things that are not existing in the category.
Sure.
We'll always do that.
So 20%?
Should not be I think it is in the horizon. I would say that. Because all these other markets, we've crossed 20% and more. 23, 24, 25, 27%.
So overall, you think
Sure. I think as a distribution expands in the rest of the country, getting to 20% plus is something we can certainly chase now.
Well, that's Ather Mehta there of Ather. That stock on a tear today. And with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. The news will continue right here on CNBC TV 18. Don't go anywhere. We're back in a moment with plenty more. Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headline that we're tracking for you this evening: Prime Minister Modi wraps up the SCO summit after resetting economic ties with China and affirming a long-term partnership with Russia. In their first meeting since the US tariffs, Prime Minister Modi, Russian President Putin discussed expediting an end to the Ukraine conflict and finding a durable peace settlement. Partners, not rivals. India and China reset bilateral ties and announced economic re-engagement after a summit between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping. Direct flights and border trade set to resume. The joint declaration at the SCO summit condemns the Pahalgam attack and calls for the perpetrators, organisers and sponsors to be brought to justice. Stops short of naming Pakistan. Prime Minister Modi calls the Pahalgam attack an assault on India's soil, with Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif present in the same room. The Sensex and the Nifty start the week on a positive note. The Nifty reclaims 24,600. Mid-cap index gains 2%. The rupee hits a record low against the dollar but recovers in late trade, ending flat. Gold and silver prices in India rally to record highs. Hopes of a rate cut in the US and inflation data fuel a global surge in prices. 48 hours to go for the GST Council to meet on revisiting the tax slabs. Consumer-facing businesses hope for tax cuts to boost sales this festive season, as small cars, two-wheelers, white goods, garments and apparel likely to get cheaper. The auto industry bats for a uniform GST rate across the sector. Royal Enfield maker Eicher Motors says a differential tax structure could damage India's rapidly expanding mid-capacity motorcycle market. The garments and apparel sector also clamours for a uniform GST rate. The rules of the Online Gaming Act, which bans real money games, is yet to be notified. The government asked banks and fintech companies to facilitate the refund of deposits to users. Companies had flagged challenges in issuing refunds due to banking restrictions. The Supreme Court dismisses a petition challenging the government's decision to blend petrol with 20% ethanol. Government argues forces beyond the country cannot decide what class of petrol needs to be used. More than 800 people are killed and thousands injured after an earthquake jolts Afghanistan. Widespread damage in the city of Jalalabad and several villages completely destroyed, according to the Ministry of Public Health. The Maratha reservation protests in Mumbai enter the fourth day. An estimated 40,000 people have gathered in South Mumbai, bringing traffic to a halt. Reports suggest some protesters harassed women, including journalists and commuters, in trains. The Bombay High Court says the protesters must be removed from all places except Azad Maidan. Well, the top story this evening: Prime Minister Modi wrapping up the SCO summit in Tianjin after resetting economic ties with China and affirming a long-term partnership with India. The shift in ties, which had reached a historic low past the Galwan Valley clashes in 2020, comes amidst India's tariff standoff with the US government. Prime Minister Modi, Russian President Putin and China's Xi Jinping were seen exchanging gestures as they came together under the same roof for the first time since US President Donald Trump escalated his tariff offensive. The SCO members signed a joint declaration that condemned the terrorist attack in Pahalgam in April and called for the perpetrators, organisers and sponsors to be brought to justice. However, the declaration stopped short of naming Pakistan. Remember, Pakistan is also a member of the SCO, and all member states need to vet the text of the joint declaration before it is adopted. Addressing the summit, Prime Minister Modi called the Pahalgam attack an assault on India's soul, with Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif present in the room. He asserted that the SCO must clearly and unanimously reject double standards on terrorism. The Prime Minister and PM Sharif were seen in the same frame at the traditional SCO family photo. However, there were at least 8 leaders between them. The Prime Minister also held a bilateral with Russian President Putin. We learned from sources that the formal meeting went on for about 50 minutes, where both sides discussed expediting the end to the Ukraine conflict and finding a durable peace settlement. The Prime Minister said India and Russia have always stood shoulder to shoulder. President Putin said that both India and Russia are closely coordinating efforts at an international level. In a rare occurrence, both leaders were seen travelling together in a car for their bilateral discussions. The Prime Minister and President Xi, meanwhile, discussed ways to balance bilateral trade. They noted that their partners are not rivals. The two countries will resume direct flights and border trade.
मैं हमेशा अनुभव करता हूं कि आपको मिलना मतलब एक यादगार मीटिंग भी होती है, बहुत सी चीजों की जानकारियों का आदान प्रदान करने का अवसर मिलता है। हम लगातार संपर्क में रहे हैं। दोनों पक्षों के बीच नियमित रूप से कई उच्च स्तरीय बैठकें भी हुई है। इस वर्ष दिसंबर में हमारी 23वीं समिट के लिए 140 करोड़ भारतीय उत्सुकता पूर्वक आपका इंतजार कर रहे हैं। एसएलसी हमारी स्पेशल एंड प्रिविलेज स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप की गहराई और व्यापकता का परिचायक है। कठिन से कठिन परिस्थितियों में भी भारत और रूस हमेशा कंधे से कंधा मिलाकर चले हैं।
Усилия по созданию в Евразии архитектуры равной и неделимой безопасности.
यूरेशिया में समान और अविभाज्य सिक्योरिटी ढांचे को बनाने के लिए प्रयासों के लिए एक मंच प्रदान करता है।
Well, Prime Minister Modi there in his bilateral meeting with Vladimir Putin. Joining us now to take us through the key takeaways from the SCO summit is our colleague Parikshit Luthra. Parikshit, it's been an action-packed 2 days. The Prime Minister meeting with President Xi Jinping, also with President Putin. Take us through the big takeaways. What's the headline coming in from the SCO summit?
Well, Prime Minister Modi and President Putin spent almost 2 hours with each other on the sidelines of the SCO summit in Tianjin. The warmth in ties was visible, with Russian President Putin waiting for about 10 minutes for Narendra Modi to join him in his presidential limousine so that the two leaders could travel together to the bilateral meeting venue. The formal meeting itself was a good 55 minutes long. The leaders discussed bilateral cooperation, including the economic, financial and energy sectors. They spent a considerable time discussing the Russia-Ukraine war. PM Modi conveyed that India and Russia always stand shoulder to shoulder, even in the most difficult situations. Modi said that India was looking forward to hosting the Russian president for the India-Russia summit in December. On the Ukraine war, the Prime Minister emphasized the need to expedite a cessation of the conflict and find a durable peace settlement. Ahead of this meeting, all three leaders of Russia, India and China had a brief exchange on the sidelines of the SCO summit. The three leaders were seen in the lounge having a conversation and sharing some light moments as well. Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif was also at the SCO summit, but there was no conversation between him and Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Even at one point, they were all in the leaders' lounge and Prime Minister Modi and Putin were walking together and they walked by Shehbaz Sharif and the Prime Minister did not acknowledge him. The Prime Minister also had a 55-minute-long meeting with Xi Jinping on Sunday. Both leaders took note of the successful disengagement at the border and also the need for peace and tranquility in border areas. The Prime Minister underlined the need for continued and smooth development in bilateral ties as well. There was a discussion on increasing policy transparency and predictability in economic relations between the two countries. Both Prime Minister Modi and President Xi discussed the international economic situation and the challenges. Of course, US tariffs were also discussed. Overall, the focus was on how to leverage the current global order, challenges in the global economic situation, and use it to the advantage of China and India.
Well, Parikshit, many thanks for joining us. The big takeaways there from the SCO summit. And just minutes before that meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Putin, the US Embassy in India posted a statement from the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, America's top diplomat. And the statement said, and I quote, "The enduring friendship between our two peoples is the bedrock of our cooperation and propels the US forward as we realize the tremendous potential of our economic partnership," end of quote. This is a departure from the statements that have been coming in from Washington, from people like Peter Navarro and, of course, Scott Bessent and many others. Now, President Trump has claimed that without tariffs, the US would be completely destroyed and its military powers will be obliterated. His comments came after a federal appeals court struck off most of the tariffs imposed by the Trump administration, saying that they're not in accordance with the law. The court said that Trump overstepped his authority under the international emergency economic powers. However, all tariffs continue to remain in place for now as the court has delayed the enforcement of the ruling till October. This means the Trump administration has time to appeal with the Supreme Court, which is exactly what it now intends to do. On to the stock market action for the day. The Sensex and the Nifty started the week on a positive note. The Sensex up by about 550 points, the Nifty up by about 200 points, reclaiming 24,600. The mid-cap index up by about 2%, and the Nifty Bank higher by about 340-odd points. So that's the market story for you. Surabhi standing by now to wrap up the week that is starting for the Lal Street. Positive Monday, Surabhi.
Well, it was a good day of trade after a long time, after what was a very disappointing week. This was a great start. Perhaps some excitement coming through because of the upcoming GST meeting. Perhaps it was all the geopolitical moves around the SCO summit. But overall, we had a trending up day after a very long time. A 200-point move on the Nifty. taking the index to the 24,600 mark once again. The other good aspect was that this was a very widespread move. It was not led by only 4-5 large cap stocks, but it was across the board. In fact, the mid cap index did even better than the Nifty. It was up almost 2%, and the advance decline ratio was very, very strong, with over 2,000 stocks advancing in trade today. Now, if you talk about the sectoral mix, then auto stocks really led from the front, and I'll come to the individual moves in just a bit. But defense, consumer durables, metals, a lot of these sectors added to the good cheer. Even IT saw some good buying today, following a positive note that came in from CLSA. Now let's talk about the key Nifty gainers. And first, the auto majors. It's across the board. Mahindra & Mahindra, 3.5% higher. Bajaj Auto, Tata Motors, and even Eicher Motors, despite that comment coming in from Mr. Siddharth Lal on Eicher, of course, being a little worried about higher GST on motorcycles above 350cc. Even that stock managed to rally pretty well in trade today. Other gainers on the Nifty included the likes of Infosys, Tech Mahindra, Trent, Eternal. So there's a bit of everything in terms of flavor. The losers, the actual pure play FMCG companies like HUL, ITC was down, and Sun Pharma was down about 2% today. The electrifying performance from Ola Electric as well as Ather Energy deserves a special mention. Ola has been surging for the past couple of weeks, and today was no exception. Double-digit gains coming in on Ola. And Ather, after some positive commentary coming in from the company and them saying that they're not looking to sell EVs below the price tag of 1 lakh rupees, that helped the stock. It was up almost 8% as well. Other interesting movers in the mid-cap market, like I said, it was very, very buoyant. Zydus Wellness on an acquisition, Rights on an order win, Keynes on very positive commentary on the way their semiconductor business is moving along. They're on track to start shipments by the fourth quarter of this year. CG Power and a couple of travel-related stocks like Lee Travenews, which is the company that runs Ixigo, and even RateGain had a big bump up. So a very good market, all-round buoyancy. Good way to start the week.
GDP is growing, savings are growing, and on top of it, participation is growing. So this combination of both is just explosive in terms of demand for the paper in the economy. Now, just because there is a demand for paper, stock markets are not going to go up. It is going to go up when the economy does well and when the earnings start climbing, which is what we expect in the second half of the year, or particularly the next year. I think we are going to see bumper increase in the earnings by maybe 15, 17, 18%, depending on the slew of reforms which is implemented.
A bumper increase in earnings next year. That's Ramdeo Agarwal on the back of the GST boost. Now, from stocks to commodities, gold and silver prices in India have hit fresh record highs. Global prices hitting multi-year highs on increased expectations of a cut by the Fed this month. Manisha standing by to take us through what is turning out to be one of the best years for precious metals. Manisha.
Well, yes, 2025 seems to be going down as one of the best years in last 5 or 6 years that you've seen for gold and silver. For the Indian markets, the gains are even more so because the rupee has depreciated quite strongly. For the international markets as well, we are trading at multi-year highs when it comes to gold and silver. So for gold prices, we are very close to basically $15 to $22 away from its all-time highs of $3,500 an ounce. For the Indian markets, we've been making record highs as a string for last 3 or 4 trading sessions now, with 1,05,000 rupees per 10 grams now broken on the higher side. For silver at $40 an ounce in the global markets, we are at a 14-year highs. But for the Indian markets, we are trading at around 1,23,000 rupees per kilo here. So when you look at gold, we are up by 33% in this year. When you look at silver, we have gained up by nearly 40% in this year. That chart should come in on your screen, which tells you on how the gold prices have gained in last many years. And this is a 5-year gap that I have taken in. And as you can see, in the last decade or so, the prices have kind of doubled every 5 years. Last year, same time, when you look at the gold prices, we were trading at a 75,000 rupees. We're trading at 1,05,000 right now. So very strong gains coming in. And then the chart shows you also the kind of gains that we have seen. The last time we saw a negative was in 2021. And the last time you saw 33% gains were many years back. So very strong gains continuing into this one. Same is the case with silver as well. Last year, same time, we were trading at around 80,000 rupees per kg. We are trading at 1,24,000 rupees right now. And when you look at the kind of gains that we have seen, 2020 saw 46% of gains in silver, and after that it is in 2025 that we are standing at 40% all year. Markets do believe that it has to do with the uncertainty, strong investment buying also by central banks, expectation of US Fed rate cuts come the month of September, and the weakness in US dollar index, all very supportive for a safe haven buying in precious metals.
Manisha, many thanks. 48 hours to go for the GST Council to meet on revising the tax slabs. Consumer-facing businesses hoping for tax cuts to boost sales this festive season.